Hello out there, everybody. Welcome to Altcoin Buzz Trading. I'm Randy. Today we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin, Thorchain, Quant, BarnBridge, which for some reason is called Bond, and Monero. So let's get right to it. Oh yeah, stay tuned for your TA tip of the day too. All right, so BTC popped up yesterday instead of rolling over. Most of those H patterns we talked about didn't move to the downside. That means that it's going to take a while for those to play out. Could only be a few more days. We'll have to wait and see. Just because an H pattern bounces doesn't mean it's done. You just have to have lower highs across the board. So Bitcoin, you can kind of see that a little bit. So Bitcoin bounced, wasn't quite an H pattern, but if you view it as such, there's the bounce, right? And then here we're finding resistance at our prior resistance point. If you remember, we've had this level at about the 27,000 point since day one, and we're waiting for that to get breached to see if we're going to try to move back up. But I want to give you a zoomed out perspective real quick. This is my 2-hour time frame, and we can get a lot of information on the 2-hour. I'll even get rid of our secondary indicators. This is that large trend line that was broken recently. And because we're stuck in a bear flag right now, our bias is to the downside, okay? Just because it bounced out of that potential bearish signal doesn't mean we're bullish. So you have to keep that in mind as well, right? So one thing I want to show you though, let me back out to the daily while I do this, is we're stuck in a fairly narrow range. If you look at the ranges Bitcoin is able to put in on the chart, this is a relatively narrow one. So even though we popped up, we didn't go very far, and most of the time you can't stay in narrow ranges for long. So a move out is likely in the next, I don't know, maybe within a week. It's hard to tell. Timelines in crypto are very difficult to contend with. So here's a narrow one down here that we stayed in there for probably longer than anybody intended, right? So this is a situation where while generally we should be in here for a week or so, you know, it'll take as long as it takes, but you got to roll with the market. All right, let's move back to the 2-hour time frame. All right, so here we are rolling over a little bit. Those past two candles on my 2-hour chart actually have wicks to the top side of them. We did end up moving up with a stalling candle, finding resistance here. So there's not much to do with BTC. If you do want to short, really the chance was late yesterday. When you have a channel like this, I like to stay out of the middle third of it in terms of entries, because it can really kind of go in either direction at any point. Now we do have a potential move to the downside here for about 3%, but it's not a great risk reward ratio. But Bitcoin is always great to keep tabs on because it really does rule the rest of the market. So while there's not a lot of great moves going on right now, we do have a few altcoins to talk about, so let's take a look at those. And the first one up, we're going to take a look at Thorchain, known as RUNE. This is a trade that we've discussed, and I do want to keep tabs on some of these trades that we've discussed, some of the winners and some of the losers. This one is still working. We had an entry up here at about the 170 level. Stop was at the prior high at about 179, and we're working this trade. It already has a lower low, so that's a good sign. Our volume never stepped in as dramatic as you would like, but it's working, so we'll stay with it for now. We do have a potential target all the way down here to the 117 level, 117.7 actually. We'll see if we get all the way down there. There does seem to be some support here at the 141. So if we get to the 141 and we start stalling out, let me bring those secondary indicators back in here. If we start stalling out, you could take profits early. This is no target level is guaranteed. Keep that in mind. So you have to roll with what the market's giving you. And if you have a profitable trade, you want to capture good profits. That's the whole point to trading. You don't have to hold for the entire thing. I know it looks good when there's a big green block on the chart and a little red one, and you want to get the full green block, but sometimes the market's not going to give it to you. But stay with it for now. It's looking pretty good. If you want to enter right now, it's not a wise choice. I should say that. Don't enter right now. We're already broken down. We're down about 10% from the entry point. You don't want to enter into a trade that's working after more than 5%, okay? 5%, you can usually stomach the pullback, maybe even where you get to your stop loss, but we're not entering RUNE right now. Next up, let's take a look at Quant. Now, Quant, we had a bigger picture bull flag on it. If you don't remember, I'm sorry, it's a cup and handle. It's not a bull flag. If you didn't see that video or don't remember, here's your cup, here's your handle. This actually by itself is also a bull flag, and we do have a fairly large measured move going up here. We'll see if we get there based on our prior discussion just a moment ago. Let's go back to the 2-hour time frame. And all right, so our declining trend line here, I don't think I had this last time because when we talked about this was a few days ago, I only had the horizontal. Now we have a declining trend line, and this is also a potential entry point. So let me kind of redraw this trade. If you are interested in this trade, you are able to get in on the declining trend line. Our stop has moved to a new low. That's about a 2% stop if it does break out, and our reward goes up here. So, but I do want to point out your traditional entry point is the high, and that can be a place of resistance. This is a trend line break. It's not a traditional entry point. We could stall at the high here, so keep that in mind. If you enter on this trade, you could stall here and come back down, but by entering lower, you have a couple things working for you. The main thing you have working for you is if it does stall, you have an opportunity to get out at a minimum break even. If it comes up here and stalls, you don't need to let it get to your stop. You can actually get out earlier at a break even point. That means you don't lose any money, or maybe you're late to selling it and you'll lose less. But that's always a good thing, so keep that in mind, okay? Now in terms of targets, you got a measured move target up here about the 004446 level. I don't know how to pronounce that in English or any other language, as a matter of fact. Risk reward ratio of 7.45. And if you can follow these potential trade setups as they are setting up and moving, which is what we're doing today compared to the video a couple of days ago, you can get into some potential good scenarios. But don't jump into this trade early. You want it to make the move first. Next up is Bond, which is BarnBridge for some reason. This one is a smaller trade. This is a very, very weak coin. The market is technically in a well, I won't go there. Inside joke. This is in a downtrend. It has lower lows across the board. This thing is extraordinarily weak, and we have a bear flag here. So we're just going to take a very quick look at a potential measured move downtrend. We're going to take this drop. Now notice this drop started with extreme volume, extreme volume, extreme volume, then it stalled out. We're going to take that whole trend, extrapolate it lower, okay? And this is rinse and repeat what we've been doing here the past couple of days, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a short trade. We're going to enter on the break of this. Our stop is actually right there at a good spot above recent highs, and our target is down here. You're looking at a 4.32 risk-reward ratio. Why is the risk-reward ratio important? I don't think we've gone over that. If you're not aware, the amount that you're willing to risk should be commensurate with the amount you're supposed to be getting as a reward. So the bigger your risk-reward ratio, the better. And you don't want to arbitrarily throw these on coins. You want to do these at a good point, but we don't have time to go into that today. The bigger, the better. If your risk ratio is like 0.5 or 1-to-1, it's not ideal except for certain conditions. So your measured move here is about a 10% trade for about a 2.3% loss. Entry is about the 2414 level with your stop loss at 2471. If you're in profits, you're looking to get to the 2168, and we'll see if that happens. But that's a nice little bear flag setup in a very weak coin. If you find yourself in a weaker market, trade the weakest coins. And that's a good tip right there. All right, next up is Monero. We talked about Monero and kind of shorting this thing as it got up towards the top. We never really got towards the top though. We did move up a little bit. I put our entry point here at the high, but we never did touch it. But we already rolled over. So I do want to show you this. Even trades you missed can teach you a lot. So if you miss this trade, not the end of the world, but you kind of see what happens. You identify resistance, you give yourself a stop loss in case you're wrong, and if you're right, you get rewarded. So even if you miss this trade, and this was the one, I think we had this yesterday, if you see this trade, this is what a good trade looks like. Monero comes up, hits resistance, and then rolls right over. So it never did fully get back up here, but I think this is a good one to talk about. You need to see how these things play out. It's good to identify support. It's good to identify resistance. And it's good to kind of, you need to learn those principles, in other words. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so time for your TA tip of the day. And I think we just went over it, actually. I had a different one, but I'm going to change it to what we just talked about with Bond. If you're in a bullish market, go with the most bullish coin. If you're in a bearish market, try to find the most bearish coins possible and short those, because most of your money is made with the market trend. So you want to stay with that trend, okay? Don't be looking for major breakouts in a bearish market. Generally, they don't work out. If you are going to, but percentage-wise, it's not going to work out very well for you. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me today on Altcoin Buzz Trading, and I will see you tomorrow.